So, in tonight's rant of his speech, Donald Trump said that if he loses the election in November, there will be a bloodbath in our country. I'm here to tell you that there will be no bloodbath in our country when Donald Trump loses in November. Donald Trump is a domestic terrorist. Donald Trump is a stochastic terrorist, and he is a national security threat. But he does not have the power and the force to create a bloodbath in our country if he loses. What will happen is what we have seen happening in the last 3 years. He will keep attacking the people, he will keep attacking election integrity, he will keep having his people get lawless and go after election workers, and there will be mayhem to a certain degree. But when he loses in November, remember he's not in power. Remember that the law enforcement, federal law enforcement under President Biden, and state law enforcement and local law enforcement will be on hand and alert, because nothing like January 6th can and should nor will happen again. And one more very important thing, and this is critical to everything, is that we turn out and vote in overwhelming numbers. You don't like Joe Biden? That's all right. But vote against Donald Trump. And right now, vote for Joe Biden is a vote for your country, a vote for my country, for our republic. And a vote for Donald Trump is a vote towards tyranny. Donald Trump has already said that he would like to terminate parts of the Constitution. I would imagine the part of the Constitution that he would like gone would be the term limits part. And he has channeled Hitler. He has talked about concentration camps for migrants. And it is a manifesto that we are seeing him regurgitate over and over and over and inundate his flock. So we have a duty to remain vigilant. We have a duty to go and vote. We have a duty to inform our fellow Americans of the truth. We have a duty as Democrats and as Americans to ask people to vote for the man who will keep our republic going. Vote for Joe Biden. Remember, third party candidates take away, because of how our system is built, take away from the unity of our country. It takes away from the unity of what the United States of America really means. And if you value your vote, you will forget about third parties and green parties and what a caricature of the Kennedy family is doing. You will focus on what is good for our country. And what's good for our country is that Joe Biden and an extremely effective Democratic Congress do what they did in the first 2 years of Joe Biden. Come up with these acts that build our infrastructure, that bring us up to the 21st century, that balances energy independence with sustainability, that partners with democracies of the world instead of autocracies and tyrants, that wants to be part of a global family that thinks globally and acts locally. And we have a duty to vote. We have a duty to ensure, and when I say we, I mean we the people have a duty to make sure that Donald Trump never gets anywhere near the Oval Office again. And if we don't fulfill our duty and if we don't vote for Joe Biden in November, we risk having our democracy slide away, our individual rights go away. A very radical Supreme Court has already taken away the woman's right to choose. They are now after contraceptives. They will be after the right to marry. They will go after privacy rights. They will go after family rights. It will become an authoritarian state before your eyes before you know it. Your Social Security and Medicare will become a thing of the past. So many social services that help so many in need who cannot afford their basic health care. Those services in states and local governments will go away because they will lose their federal funding. And that is how important it is for you to understand that your vote is the vote for democracy. And should you vote for anybody other than Joe Biden, that vote for democracy gets diluted. And worse, if you vote for Trump, then you are voting against our republic. I know there are very many Americans who still will vote for Donald Trump. And if anything, my plea to you is to see with open eyes, without prejudice in your heart and hatred for what you don't understand, clouding your judgment, and see whether what happened under Donald Trump was really better than what is happening under Joe Biden. The basic truth of the matter is 1 million plus Americans died because Donald Trump failed to properly implement procedures and properly lead his people, lead his flock to ensure that COVID didn't become a major problem. He instead ignored it. He instead played it down. He instead suggested shining light up our butts. And if you remember how the shelves were during 2020, if you remember how our markets were, the lack of toilet paper, all that happened during Donald Trump's rule because he rules, he doesn't govern. And if you forgot that, then you do a disservice to 1 million plus Americans who have died through COVID. You know, Donald Trump's fans say, you know, he never went through a war, blah, blah, blah. But you know what he did? He sat quietly by thinking about shining light up our butts while 1 million plus Americans died. That alone is a losing factor for him. Then he touts taking away a woman's right to choose. And every woman in America should be offended by that, should be offended by the idea of voting for Donald Trump because he takes pride in having taken away your right to choose what to do with your body. So when we go to the polls, and we must remember that. Think about what is putting food on your table. Think about what is putting a roof over your head. Think about the issues that matter to you. Think about the basic decency of the American people that upholds the rule of law and democracy throughout the world. Think about the plight of the Ukrainians. Think about the hardship that Gazans have to go through and think about the fear that Israel is in. Think about all of these concerns and think about how Joe Biden continues to balance them, not stamp them out. One, you know, it's very easy to make a decision like, oh, we will stop giving Ukraine any aid. Because from the American standpoint, we're not seeing our brothers and sisters and our neighbors die. We're not seeing our malls and our buildings getting blown away. So it doesn't matter. And it's a regional issue with Russia. It's not a regional issue. Be a student of history for at least a day and look at World War II. Look at how Hitler rose to power. And remind yourselves that we cannot turn into that fascist regime. Because if America turns into the fascist regime that Hitler wanted, then God help the world. And God help every single person who is sycophantically sticking with Donald Trump, who doesn't believe in the idea of a superior white race and an Aryan way forward. You will also come under the knife. So, with that said, I will stop ranting. And I had to come out and say that. I live across the world, and I will make it a point to do whatever that needs to be done to career my vote to my election commission in Chicago. And I make sure that I get confirmation that they received my vote and that it was processed. That's how I've done it for years now. And that's what I have to keep doing because of the constraints that I have on my personal life. But that does not stop me from voting. It shouldn't stop you either.